Hi everyone, my name is Nancy Fausto and the topic I'm going to cover today is worker stress. What is worker stress? Worker stress is the physiological and or psychological reactions to events that are perceived to be threatening or taxing, of course in the workplace or the work environment. There are two sources of worker stress that I chose to cover under worker stress, which are work overload and work family conflict. Work overload is a common source of stress resulting when a job requires excessive speed, output, or concentration. This is basically when the organization gives you so much more work than you can handle. As for work family conflict, it is a cumulative stress that results from duties of work and family roles. This is basically an individual having high demands from the work and high demands from from your family or anybody in your surroundings. And I feel like these two are very important because these two are very common um, worker stress that many people face. Work related problem. The work related problem that I chose to cover was based on our project manager for the company that I work for. This employee underwent both of these worker stress sources, work overload and work family conflict. I was able to see this firsthand and see exactly how it played out. So basically, our project manager underwent work overload and work family conflict. Work overload was seen through project deadlines that he had to meet and pressure from his subordinates, from his colleagues, and of course from our boss. And all of this accumulated into a huge amount of work overload and resulted in a negative outcome because he was facing so much pressure from work as well as pressure in his family, and he was facing issues with his teen daughter, and this was played out um, altogether, and it resulted in his performance affecting his performance and the production for the company, as well as lack of concentration, reliability, effort, and production. And we were noticing this as it played out, and I came to realize like there's something that needs to be done because this if there's nothing that's done, this problem will continue and may later on result in poorer outcomes. So according to the textbooks, there were a couple of research findings that were found in the textbook for work overload and work family conflict. The first one had to do with work overload, and it was based on email overload. It is a new form of work overload that is seen in the technological world, and it is seen more often now due to increased information that is now developed into a more innovative form, such as email overload. And that was seen in an example. And another example of work overload is research on physiological indications of stress due to work overload that resulted in high cholesterol and increased heart rate. This goes to show that worker stress, such as work overload, does result and has effects such as in our physiological body. An example in the research findings for work family conflict was seen in individuals who were feared of losing their homes due to the collapse in the market, which resulted in stress in the workplace. So, this is a good example that goes to show that two things can be affected in one, and especially having stress in one environment will affect your stress in another. And these two are play major roles in many people's lives. The journal article that I found was called Relation of Work Family Conflict to Health Outcomes, a 4-year longitudinal study of employed parents by Michael R. Fraun, Marcia Russell, and Emlyn Cooper. This article, I chose to cover this article because it covered one of the sources of worker stress, which is work family conflict. It showed the effects on work family conflict and health outcomes and health behaviors. Their hypothesis was that work family conflict would show a positive relation to poor depressive symptoms, physical health, and alcohol consumption, as well as hypertension. The study lasted 4 years with data collection from structured interviews and physical measurements. The results did support the hypothesis and showed that there was a positive relationship with work family conflict and rates of depression, poor physical health, and hypertension. So, this article supports work family conflict and its purpose, and I felt that it was very useful and very helpful in understanding an example for work family conflict. As for solutions, individual coping strategies and organizational coping strategies are two forms of solutions that are found in a textbook. Individual coping strategies are techniques that include exercise, meditation, cognitive restructuring, as well as biofeedback. These are ways to keep the body resistant to illness and include states of relaxation, which are very effective in the work environment or individually to later on bring positive feedback in the work environment. Organizational coping strategies are techniques used by the company to reduce stress for all or most of the employees. There are many ways or things the organization can do to reduce stress, and the textbook mentions a couple of them. One being improving the person job fit. I feel that this is very important because every individual should feel comfortable in where they're placed, and this will later on affect production and how comfortable the person is and how well they are going to do in this work environment. Another example mentioned by the textbook is improving employee training and orientation programs. I think this is another coping strategy that is very important because it allows the employee to feel comfortable and competent and familiar in the work environment that they are entering. As for the article, it offers a very brief solution, which is offering support programs. It doesn't go much into detail into what kind of programs should be offered, but that is what all it covers. And lastly, I personally think that you should get to know your employees, be understanding and empathetic in the work environment. I believe it's a very positive approach, and I believe it will be very effective in the solution of worker stress. And this concludes my presentation.